So you've skied down the slopes of Aspen, got a groovy tan at Saint-Tropez. Well, if you want the best, headed on west, Reno has it night and day. You're gonna have fun in snow or in sun in big little Reno. You might take a chance on cards or romance. You gotta try Reno. You can't lose either way. And I'm telling you, chum, Reno's the place to play. Hop on a plane, try the train or a bus. We're the best, we've got it all. We're gonna make sure you have a ball. So pack up your things and give your dream wings to big little Reno. The odds are you'll stay for more than a day. You're gonna love Reno. Why not visit our mountains and lakes? Our shows, our tops, we've got what it takes to make sure you have fun in snow or in sun in Reno, big little Reno.
It used to be that Reno was a much smaller, more centralized city. You parked your car and walked around downtown. Business was done with a handshake and a smile. You paid for your purchases with silver dollars, and the weight of the extra ones literally wore a hole in the pocket of your trousers. All your movie theaters were right there, too. The Crest, the Nevada, the Majestic, the Granada. After the movie, you'd walk over to Les LaRue's Cafe for apple pie and coffee. Those were the days. And there was a special, almost magical time during the 40s, 50s, and 60s when Reno was the city known round the world. The brightest stars in show business entertained in our showrooms. Movie stars, socialites, and thousands of others hopped the train to Reno for our famous 6-week marital makeover. And it's been said that back then, you could be anywhere in the lower 48 states and never be more than 8 hours from a Harold's Club or bust billboard. Reno really was the biggest little city in the world.
When you've climbed the highest mountain, when a cloud holds the sun shining, suddenly there's a valley where hope and love begin.
In the 50s, 60s, and 70s, Reno was an entertainment paradise. No shortage of things to do. During the day, we golfed, played on the beaches of the most beautiful lake in the world, rode horses in the hills around the valley. But that was only half the fun, because when the sun went down, the curtain went up on the biggest names in show business.
All of the big names, from San Francisco to Los Angeles, would stop into Reno, play that night, just for enough money to keep going, because they were going to Salt Lake, and it was too long a jump for them. So we'd stop there, and we had all of the big names here.
The entertainment, we had the very best in the world. You name it, we had them. They were here. A lot of the younger groups that we would watch day in, day out, like Loretta Lynn, Martin Denny, Trini Lopez, Petula Clark. They hit it big after the lounge acts.
There were so many good shows and good acts going on in those days that you just took your pick who you wanted to go see, and they were either in town or they were coming to town soon. It was very easy in those days because highballs were 35 cents. You didn't need reservations to go and see a famous act. at the Cal-Neva, you'd just go in and if you wanted to go to dinner, and there were always tables available. You didn't have to wait. You didn't have to wait in the bar or anything. You'd just go up and tell the maitre d' you wanted a nice table, wanted to see the show and have dinner. And it was very easy getting in.
In the good old days, we'd play our shows and then usually go downtown and catch the Mary Kay Trio or the Harry James Band. And you could do this for the price of a drink. They were at Harris Club. Of course, it varied. You know, the single guys could do that. Married guys, after the gig was over, you know, they went right home.
There was just a lot of activity going on. We had a lot of customers roaming the streets. There were just many places to use up all those customers, all those bodies. Today, there's so many casinos spreading out the customer base. But in the 50s and 60s, the entertainment just was a tremendous catalyst to bring a happy atmosphere into the town. It was just a lot of fun. I really enjoyed my life in the 50s and 60s and 70s in Reno. It was an exciting town, a very active town.
People lined up, and these showrooms, for the most part, weren't big enough to handle as big a name as these people were. So guess what? They had lots of shows. You kept people here for quite a while. And then you, of course, when you booked in somebody, like George Goebel, he was here for 3 or 4 weeks because he couldn't do it all in one show. You couldn't have all of the people that wanted to see it at one time.
During those years, we had more work than we had musicians, and we had 500 musicians in town. The greatest musicians, I think, in the world. People from studio musicians used to come up here because this was actually the entertainment capital, and we had entertainment galore.
Do you remember those beautiful showrooms? And each had its own house band.
Mapes, Riverside, then Harris Club, and then the Nugget, Harris up the lake, the Sahara up the lake. I believe there was one on the North Shore, too. It was great times, you know. We worked steady, and those were some of the best days in the music business.
But we experienced a growth then in the Star era, I think, of having very major names in the whole community, and I think that attracted a lot of people and made people aware that Reno indeed was a major destination point.
In those years, we watched some of the biggest names in the business come through town. Many became regulars, members of our community. For them, playing Reno was like a working vacation. And they loved visiting Reno for the same reasons that we loved living here.
It's a very lovely community, and Lake Tahoe, again, is an hour away from where we are. It's a very pretty community, and that had a lot to do, I think, with the types of entertainment we were able to get at that time.
I remember Rowan and Martin were very good friends of mine. They used to come in the store and feel at home. They used to sit on the counter and tell me stories, and they were very clever. Jerry Lewis used to come in and buy pants to play golf in. One time I got a kick out of Jerry Lewis. He walked around the store and he picked out a pair of jeans. And he said, "Mr. Parker, I'll take all of those you have in my size." And he didn't know that I had some more in the basement. I had 23 pair. So he took them all, believe it or not.
Another memory I'm kind of fond of is Carol Channing. her first booking at the Nugget, and she said, I just love this hotel, this casino, the audience, and everything else. And it's so much nicer than Las Vegas. You have fresh air here, and so on. Well, I picked up on that, and I had a package made for Carol with fresh air from Reno that she could take to Vegas. And I said, Carol, you're not going to make a lot of friends in Las Vegas, you know, knocking them like that. She said, that's okay. I appreciate the fresh air. So that box is full of fresh air.
And they like to come back to Reno. This was what they loved it. And not all of that. They had the best accommodations. They had the suites. Bill Harrah even had a house for the entertainers if they had a family. And they also had the access to a Rolls Royce. Where could you beat that? Not very many places would give you that kind of treatment. Yeah.
One of the things I remember well is I went to see Shirley MacLaine at Caesars in Las Vegas. Huge room, high salaries. And I wanted her to appear at John Esquaga's Nugget. And I talked to her, and through her agents and managers and so on, we agreed upon a deal. And on opening night, Shirley said to me after the first show, this is the nicest room I've ever worked. There's a chemistry between me on stage and the audience, and it was so comfortable. I love this room. And I said, Shirley, you're being very accommodating, and I appreciate that. Do you really mean that? You know, our room was half the size of, say, Caesars in Las Vegas. She said, no, the flow back and forth was the most lovely room I've ever worked. And I thought, gee, thank you. And I agreed with her, I might add. One of my favorite acts of all time, the Mills Brothers, because so many star performers insist on a 25-piece band, you know, and all the elegant lighting and stuff that goes with a good show. These guys had one mic. They walked to it, did their show, maybe 10 or 12-piece orchestra, and that was it, and did wonderful work. And what a lot of people don't know, that Harry Mills was blind at the time and walked out to the mic and did his thing with a little help from his two brothers, and did wonderful shows.
Ladies and gentlemen, Bill Miller's Riverside Hotel is proud to present the Mills Brothers.
Oh, baby, I'm racking my brain to think of a name. I can't tell this tune, so very and true. A baby old thing, will give it a fling. And that was all I ever want to hum of the thing. Thank you very, very, very much, ladies and gentlemen. I've had a real great big hand for Lou Levette and his band for playing this music. So wonderful. Yeah, Lou.
It's almost impossible. You can see just what's in here. There's just so much entertainment we had. We were the entertainment capital of actually the world at that particular time between the 50s and 60s.
Also in those years, if you'd go to the showroom in the Riverside Hotel or the Mapes or to the Golden, you would have a dinner show. And that was the way it was done.
But it was nice to go in and with some friends and sit down at a table or take your date and you could get up and dance. They did dance in those days.
There would be an orchestra, not canned music, but an orchestra. There was a dance floor in front of the orchestra, and you could dance before the show. You'd have your dinner served beautifully, and gourmet meals. And then, of course, the show would come on, and you'd have a named entertainer, such as, for instance, Red Skelton or Rowan and Martin, somebody like that, who would entertain you, and it was an evening to be remembered.
One of the most colorful aspects of show business during that era was the production shows that were in most of the major showrooms. And this included a chorus line of beautiful girls and a house band. They were in the Mapes Hotel, Riverside Hotel, and the Golden Hotel. We even had a chorus line at Harold's Club for a while.
I believe one of the best shows that we ever had, and it was the Playgirls.
If you knew what was going on back there, backstage, back there, Sherry not can do a thing with her hair, backstage, back there.
Anyhow, Burnett put this Playgirls show together. Individually, they were great gals in themselves, and this was a sellout show. It was a beautiful thing. Like I say, Sue Carson again, who to me was the greatest comedian in the world, which I worked dozens and dozens of times. And then Sherry North, of course, she's in pictures back in New York. And then this gal from London, Sabrina, my love and thanks and best wishes, one of those things. And then we also had, and I don't know what the Jukebox Review, I don't know, is, what do they call these? Now, these are men dressed up as women on the thing. And the city council banned them. And about 4 weeks later, they went out to the Nugget and did a beautiful job. They filled the room, and it was a great show. And if you didn't know that they weren't men, they were women.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Bill Miller's Riverside Hotel, and to Danny Brown and Doc Benner's fabulous Jukebox Review.
If I am dancing, roll up the floor. If I am whistling, woot me out the door.
And it was a great show. But before, I can't neglect the Crazy Horse Review from Paris.
Bonsoir, madame. Hotel Riverside proudly presents direct from Paris, bold and sophisticated, Le Crazy Horse Review.
Directed on stage by Ginnery. If you like la vie en rose, there is only one Paris for that.
And part of it is almost striptease. On the Crazy Horse Review, they came up with some good music, and for instance, one of with the background music is this one gal there with a boa stretching across the thing as the music goes through the whole picture on the thing. Then came the Minsky's Follies, which is the greatest show of all here. Went on for 2 16-week segments on the thing. Started out with the Minsky's Follies, and then after the I think 9th or 10th week is Life at Minsky's, which was a complete change of show and everything. Challenging music, great music.
Here we are, girls. I promised I'd take you to Bill Miller's beautiful Riverside Hotel.
Are we going to see the new Harold Minsky production?
We sure are. Thank heaven for little girls. For little girls get bigger every day.
But by the early 1970s, things were changing. Showrooms were closing.
We have corporations now. We don't have personal ownerships. And I think that is the biggest problem. The philosophy of dining rooms like this, for instance, was not to make money in the dining room, was to bring people in to gamble. Now the newer generation of management says, if this room don't make any money, cut it out. All you need is entertainment. I've been preaching it, but nobody's believed me so far.
You always think of the dark side, you know, when jobs are hard to get and things aren't like they used to be. And I remember back, and we did have some fun. We had some good times. There was a lot of hard work involved, but some good times, really good times. Got to play some good music. And that's what a house band does, or did.
Thank you.
A bunch of divorcees would head for Lake Tahoe, and as they came back, there was a sign, 13 miles from Reno, you're entering Nevada. As they entered Nevada, they would all begin the over-the-border chant. We're in Nevada now, we're in Nevada now. We don't give a darn for the 47 other states, we're in Nevada now.
Darling. Mommy, will Daddy come to Reno?
No, darling.
Mommy, where is Daddy?
I don't know and I don't care. In the future, you'll please refer to him as that heel.
In 1931, the Nevada legislature decided that only 6 weeks residence was necessary to qualify for a Nevada divorce. This made divorce almost easy. Disgruntled spouses from around the world were flocking to the biggest little city.
It was probably one of the most cosmopolitan cities you would ever find, because there were people from, not only from the east coming in here, but other parts of the world, actually. Reno was a pretty well-known city, considering that there were only 30 or 35,000 people living here.
Nevada was a mecca, an absolute mecca for the divorce business. There were people who came here from Europe. There were people who came here from Asia. They came, of course, from the eastern United States in the droves, and it became so well known as the divorce capital of the world that movies were made of it, the periodicals ran stories.
Well, let's all have another little drink here to Reno, the biggest little city in the world, American cradle of liberty.
Reno, beautiful emblem of the Great Divide.
Yes, get dressed. You gotta be my witness.
This'll be my 77th time I've witnessed for a divorce. 2 sevens. That's lucky, darling.
Oh, Iz, I hope.
Hollywood jumped on the bandwagon, producing as many as 15 films depicting heartbroken characters taking the cure in Reno. And with almost daily mentions in newspapers across the country and around the world, the name Reno became synonymous with divorce. It was an exciting time in Reno. Among the divorce seekers making the pilgrimage were members of society's elite, the rich and the famous, stars and superstars. From the 1930s through the early 1970s, our impressionable young city was temporary home to such high-profile celebrities as Rita Hayworth, Bobo Rockefeller, Arthur Miller, and Gloria Vanderbilt. Their mere presence brought us national attention. But not all the celebrities wanted to be seen getting renovated. Sometimes newsmen like Bill Barry had to dig pretty deep for a story.
I broke the story in the Daily News how Arthur Miller was at Pyramid Lake and wooing by long-distance telephone Marilyn Monroe. He was out at Pyramid Lake for a divorce, establishing a divorce residence. He had to get a divorce to marry Marilyn. Now, how did I get a story like that? They had party lines out there, and somebody told me that there was a guy out there calling Los Angeles, and then for 25 cents on a public telephone, but would then reverse the charges. And found out it was Arthur Miller. And I wired the news. I got the telephone number, and they found out the telephone number was Marilyn Monroe's secret number.
The celebrity divorces were the kind of divorces where you would protect your client from the press. And that included from Bill Barry. God love Bill Barry because he was a very nice man. But you would protect your client as much as you could. Your secretary was instructed never to talk to the press. Never even admit that this particular person was a client of your office.
In those years, a newspaper man could wire collectors. He knew a story coming up for, say, some divorcee from Kalamazoo, Michigan, or someplace. So you'd look up an editor and publisher, get the name of a newspaper, and wire them collect. 500 words, so-and-so, divorce coming up. Usually the editors would respond, yeah, they want the story. And a story like that was good for a check of $5, $10, or $15, which was a lot of money in those days.
We had a mechanism which was very frustrating to people like Bill Berry, and that was that if we had a celebrity divorce, we could arrange, number one, for a closed hearing where Bill Berry couldn't sit in the back of the courtroom and listen to the testimony. And then another mechanism, in addition to the closed hearing, was we would ferret the celebrity divorcee out of Reno, take her to Virginia City or to Minden, or even on occasion to Fallon, and get the divorce there. And since the divorce could be set for hearing on virtually a moment's notice, the press would not have a clue what was going on.
I'll tell you the story about Gloria Vanderbilt. She's up there at Zephyr Cove, in this hut. She wrote a book about it. Now, she got the divorce, and they were going to get out of Reno. She was always trying to duck me, of course. And the plane had a forced landing in the Mojave Desert, and they finally got to Mexico, and I bird-dogged them by long-distance telephone by placing a call. You couldn't do that today, what I did. I got the operator and said, I want to place a person-to-person call to a justice of the peace who was married, Leopold Stokowski and Gloria Vanderbilt. And she called all the justices around and finally found the right one.
But lawyers and reporters weren't alone in their appreciation of matrimonial disharmony. The whole community was benefiting from this new industry, and the cash registers were ringing like slot machines. With as many as 19,000 divorces in 1946, divorce was our business, and business was good. We had hit the jackpot again. Divorcees needed to eat, to be entertained, to shop. Why, yes, Miss Vanderbilt, I'm sure we have that in your size. Heck, while you're in town, Miss Rockefeller, why not visit our fine casinos?
The impact of the divorce business to the economy was instant money. And the people came from the East and everywhere else with pocketfuls of money, essentially. And they spent it here, and it improved the economy immeasurably.
Even musicians like Lou Levitt found themselves cashing in by serenading the women's boyfriends who were waiting back home by long-distance telephone from the townhouse.
At the townhouse, called townhouse, where the old Pennies used to be, it was in the basement. It was strictly a lawyer's paradise, where they bring their clients. Now, the gals that would come up here for divorce, and I don't think anybody back east is going to know this, that their ex-husbands down there, they got a boyfriend waiting for them in Boston, New York. We get on the telephone with my violin, serenading their boyfriends while they were getting a divorce from their husband. It's fantastic. It was a very lucrative business for everybody in Reno at that time.
The people that came in for divorce, they spent quite freely. They wanted quality. Anyone that had enough money to fly out and stay at a guest ranch and do things naturally had enough money to spend. And if they got a good divorce settlement, they spent a little more. If they didn't get so well, they took it easy.
And for those who could afford to think of divorce as a 6-week vacation, we provided the finest in Western elegance, the Dude Ranch.
The ranches were really quite expensive. And I'd have a call from a New York lawyer, for instance, and he'd say to me, I'm sending out so-and-so to you for a divorce, and I would immediately ask him, what can the lady afford by way of accommodation? And he'd tell me what she could afford. And I would then call the guest house, or in the alternative, call the guest ranch, and I would arrange for the reservation for the lady to come and stay there.
When a divorcee came to town, which was probably by train, she, the owner, would think about nothing else during the next 24 hours but this woman, what she would need. And so she would come out, bring her out to the ranch from Reno, and then set her up in one of the little cabins. And each cabin had 4 bedrooms, 4 baths, and 4 porches, so that you, the dude had this little sanctum for herself, and then all the meals were taken here in the lodge.
Well, what you see here is the old Will James Lodge, which is Washoe Pine's main meeting place, and during the days of the divorcees, this is where they would have their cocktail hour and also where they'd eat their meals every night. And then, of course, the divorcees loved all of this kind of Western memorabilia that you have, like the Longhorns, which to my knowledge were never actually raised in Nevada, but probably imported from Texas. This table here came with the ranch, and the WP logo, the Washoe Pines logo here in the middle, and this, as you can imagine, is a broken ring, presumably a wedding ring. You've got some other related kinds of brands, the Broken Heart. The Flying ME, of course, is the ranch, the other divorce ranch from Washoe Valley, just down the road. But a lot of these I've actually never heard of. They could be real, or they could be just a figment of this guy's imagination.
I think they liked being part of this weird Western world. The ambience, I think, has a healing quality to it.
Well, it depended on the group. Some were, you know, well, more outgoing. Some cried for 6 weeks, and some drank for 6 weeks. Some we didn't want to keep for 6 weeks, and but more or less they would congregate around the pool.
Most of the ranches had things going on. They would have trail rides, they would have camping trips, and it wasn't unusual for some of the dudes to go out and go on a cattle drive 2 or 3 or 4 days at a time. It was a totally new experience for them, and cowboys were glad to have the help, and they enjoyed it.
As soon as they'd come out, they wanted to head down to Parker's and get themselves all outfitted, and particularly if it was during the, you know, the rodeo time. And we had one man that, oh, he was so ridiculous. He bought a 10-gallon hat, and he had a Hawaiian shirt on. I'll never forget it. He's going out the driveway on this horse, and the saddle hadn't been cinched tight enough. And as he made the turn, everything started going this way, and the hat went this way, and he was also in Bermuda shorts and cowboy boots. I mean, it was a picture that, you know, would be hard to even draw, I think, today.
But they did. They had an entirely different impression of what, or some of them did anyway, what to expect. And
yeah, one of the guests had a bet with her sister that she'd be met at the airport in a buckboard. You know, I don't think I knew what a buckboard was.
But the Old West wasn't all Hollywood fiction. Guests of ranches like Emmy Wood's Flying ME witness a bit of the true West, Nevada style.
Then maybe once, sometimes twice a week, well, she'd take the crowd and go to Virginia City. Of course, they thought they'd never seen anything like that. And Virginia City was not anything at all like it is today. There was places up there that stayed open all night, and you could actually eat in town all night. She had a few house rules. One of them was she told the girls on their when they initially came there, that that when she said, if I take 6 girls to town, I expect to bring 6 girls home. She said, you can talk to people. It's not that you're in prison or anything, but she said, I don't want them running all over. She said, I have enough trouble with the local people anyway. She said, they're not sure about what kind of a place we're running out here.
There just were a number of women who would be at a point where they were thinking of leaving that whole Eastern scene, and you get some of this in the women, the Clare Boothe Luce play about the women. They have a kind of love-hate relationship with their old life, and the hate part moves them into giving a kind of all-out devotion to the Western simple life, and that seems to be embodied in a Wrangler.
You know, they come out here from New York, Chicago, St. Louis, and they find them a cowboy. Cowboys are supposed to be dumb, you know. So they tell them everything, and they do everything. Everything they couldn't do back home.
Now, Buck Winston is nice. He's so young and strong. Have you noticed the play of his muscles? Oh, musical. Musical.
Great Scott, you don't mean to say his joints squeak.
Lucy.
And the women that came out naturally were lonesome. Some came out with their children, and the cowboys naturally flocked to the ones they liked, and some of them even got married to some of the divorcees eventually.
Well, the courthouse was called the Women's Exchange, and for the simple reason, quite a few of them brought their boyfriends out with them, wanted to keep them interested, and to marry them immediately after the divorce. They got a divorce, and they got married by the same judge who'd granted the divorce a few minutes earlier. And then they would come out, and she would kiss the pillar. Those big pillars at the courthouse had red lipstick marks on them. And there was an old adage that some of them would go down and throw their rings into the Truckee River. Well, there were a few rings tossed in.
I can remember a number of occasions when my own clients, when I would get a divorce for a client at 9:45 in the morning, and at 10:30 the same morning, she would be married. Divorce granted, the judge would say, and half an hour later he'd say to the same lady, do you swear to love, honor, and obey?
What's the matter, dearie? Cat got your tongue?
No. To Reno.
In the past few years, legalized gambling has become quite accepted around the world. But when we were growing up, Reno was quite a novelty, and gaming didn't always enjoy the sparkly, clean image it now has. It was a vice, a crime in the other 49 states. Our image needed a little polishing. But back then, you couldn't just take out a full-page ad saying, "Come gamble, you might strike it rich." We needed a novel approach, or better yet, several novel approaches.
You like the kind of people you meet on the bus to Harrisburg. Why, it's a beautiful drive with lots to see.
And we'll pay the bill.
The trip is free. There's fun and excitement when you arrive.
Advertising legalized gambling in Nevada in the 50s and 60s was very difficult because we weren't allowed to issue an open invitation to gamble through advertising. The rules and the laws and just the moral concept of legalized gambling was not acceptable as it is today.
You weren't allowed to mention on radio that you had loose slot machines or that you had table games. Your advertising was strictly limited to fine food that you may have, or reasonable prices in food that you might have, or even entertainment that you might have. So your idea was to get the people into the club with the understanding that if you're there, you're going to gamble.
Any advertising was good advertising. Casino owners would put their promotional dollars into just about any event or gimmick that might improve their public image or get their club's name mentioned in the papers.
I first came to Reno in 1947 to play what we called semi-professional baseball in Reno for Harrah's Club. And one of the reasons that the clubs and the casinos sponsored baseball teams was a type of advertising, or as we call it nowadays, marketing. So Harrah's Club wanted to have a good baseball team, a good represented, for two reasons. First, to get their name in the paper, and secondly, so they could beat Harold's Club or beat any of the other clubs.
Quite a few of Reno's finest young men grew up playing baseball in Reno, with several teams being sponsored by local casinos and other businesses.
We had some people on some of those teams that I played with that became famous later on. One of the most famous people was a gentleman named Frank McCullough. He pitched on our team in '47. He later went on to become editor of Time Life magazine. He was editor of the Los Angeles Examiner, and he won a Pulitzer Prize Award. We had Buddy Garfinkel, played second base for us. He worked in the Washoe County school system for many years as a coach and administrator. His shortstop was Joey Elcano. The Elcano family's been in Reno probably for 70, 80 years. They operated several businesses in Reno, and Toscano's was a famous bar, restaurant, and casino on Lake Street.
That lineup helped Bill Harrah's investment in baseball pay off. His teams won Nevada State Championships in 1947 and again in 1948, giving the papers plenty of opportunities to print the name Harrah's. The second year out, the promotion went into overdrive. Next stop, the national tournament in Wichita, Kansas. But the boys didn't exactly travel incognito.
Bill Harrah chartered a railroad car. We had our own railroad car. We hooked up in Reno and we went all the way back to Wichita. We wore jackets emblazoned with Harrah's Club, your Reno host. Harrah's Club in the front and in the back. We were paid in silver dollars, and the silver dollars had little markers on them that said Harrah's Club, your Reno host. We handed out ashtrays, matches, everything we could that had Harrah's name on it all the way across country and all the way back. So Harrah's Club and Bill Harrah, of course, have always had the reputation of going first class. Well, even in baseball in those days, we went first class.
Both Bill Harrah and the Smith family were very good promotionally minded people. They would recognize a good idea, or they would offer ideas on their own. And they were always willing to put the dollars behind a good promotion.
Well, I want to say this, Roy. I like your work. I've always liked your work, but the way business has been for about 2 months, I think we need something extroverted, something really with a lot of steam in it, like my marching down the street with a live band with a Yankee uniform on. You know, for 2 or 3 months after that, business picked up. Now, we made the UP Wire with that.
We made every paper in the country. That was great.
I've been thinking of something that might be spectacular.
Well, let's do another bit on the, another twist on the band bit. Let's get a little small-piece band, and you march right through the club. We'll have you leading the band in a costume, and we'll costume the band up, and you go right in between the slot machines. Be good for business on the spot, too.
The entertainers provided opportunities for publicity stunts that we would not have had otherwise. And among all of us who were in the advertising publicity end of the business, were constantly seeking a new idea to promote the specific hotel or Reno in general. And there's a local photographer named Don Darrow who published a book full of publicity pictures that came out of that era. And almost all of them have entertainers, showgirls in bathing suits, and you could hustle this type of art to almost any newspaper in the country or wire service.
The message we sent to the rest of the world was that exciting things were happening in Reno. Celebrity appearances, special events, the whole town got involved.
Well, some of the wildest ideas that came about revolved around the rodeo. The Junior Chamber of Commerce ran the Black Mariah and the Kangaroo Court, set it up in downtown Reno, and arrested everyone that was not in proper attire. That's Western. It cost you a ticket to the rodeo, the purchase of to get out of the kangaroo jail after you were found guilty, and everyone was that wasn't in Western attire. The Silver Spurs Award was an invention of the Reno Chamber of Commerce. This was to recognize the top box office star in a Western movie and reward him with a very special set of silver spurs presented at the Reno Rodeo. They ran in conjunction with each other to promote the town and the activity for a big weekend.
Community events like the Reno Rodeo and the Virginia City Camel Races attracted thousands of spectators as well as the press. And casinos like Harold's Club were always ready to step into the spotlight.
Then I finally really got serious, and I brought in a gentleman who was dressed as a French Foreign Legionnaire. And I told the press that camel racing was very successful in North Africa in the French Foreign Legion. And this gentleman was the champion. And he just happened to be the stage manager of Harold's Club. And I drove him to Truckee, and he got on the train in Truckee, and then when the train arrived in Reno, there was a big welcoming ceremony for him. And I told him, don't say a word, I'll speak for you. So we got away with that. And he won the race, and we all waved goodbye as he got back on the train, went back to Truckee. And I was finally exposed, and the newspaper called me a fraud, and I think it was all tongue-in-cheek. They all had a good time with it. I worked it out for a while. It just didn't last.
A lot of people would do a lot of different things that would just be so close to out and out ridiculous. And if they were called on it, of course, it fell under your coverage of humor. We're trying to get your attention and make this a friendlier place. There was other people that had a lot of fun. The Club Fortune, before it was the Club Cal-Neva. They, in neon lights, of all things, they had recommended by Duncan Hines. And of course, the Wigwam Coffee Shop, he had, in neon lights also, not recommended by Duncan Hines.
This is Reno, Nevada. Here's a view of Reno's glittering nightclubs.
Remember those signs? Or cruising the casinos, enjoying really good entertainment for the price of an inexpensive drink? You'd likely meet the casino owners, too. Harold Smith Sr. or Jr. or Pappy might deal a hand at Harold's Club. The Tomerlin brothers were there daily at the Golden. Newt Crumley turned out great food at the Holiday. Charles Mapes might buy you a drink while Joe Carnes tickled the ivories at the Mapes. Bill Harrah frequently visited the entertainers in the Virginia Street Lounge. And you couldn't miss Ernie Prim's Prima Donna, one of the most flamboyant facades ever to grace Virginia Street.
The Prima Donna was extremely popular because, first of all, it featured pinups. The marquee on the front of the casino had Lady Luck and her attendants, very attractive ladies. That theme carried on through the rest of the casino, everything in a kind of a bright pastel harlequin pattern. It was just a really bright, happy casino.
Promotional events and glitzy neon signs may bring guests in the door, but sending a happy customer home to tell friends and family about the great time they had in Reno has always been the best advertising. Remember all the great giveaways the clubs used to have? In those days, you didn't have to visit the gift shop to pick up a souvenir.
Well, almost every one of the clubs would have their own matches, their own napkins, the carry-out glasses that would have their logos on them or their names. Calendars were a real big thing. 1960, I didn't have any money, so I did all my Christmas shopping with all of my friends, and I sent them Harold's Club calendars. All I have to do is go down there, fill out the name and address. They not only gave the calendar itself, but they mailed it and picked up the postage. It was wonderful.
Nothing's better than putting your name on something very useful. That's why these attractive designs were used on the matchbooks to advertise the casinos. These and the ashtrays, people were encouraged to take them home. In fact, it wasn't unusual for the casino to give you an entire box of matches so that you could give them to your friends and help them advertise.
The ashtrays. Harold's Club came out with one of the nicest ones. In fact, it was so nice they couldn't keep them on the tables, either in a restaurant or on the 21 tables. So they had different locations where they would give you as many of these as you wanted. You could take a couple of dozen and furnish your own establishment back in Fresno if you wanted. They did not care. They wanted their name out there.
And each table had a different pack of cigarettes. If you like Lucky's or if you like Camels, you could go to the table and pick out the brand that you liked and play there. Times have changed.
Times certainly have changed. It used to be that no one left a casino empty-handed. Several clubs even had first-rate premium booths that ran on a point system.
As you played the slot machines and bingo and won, you were awarded a coupon. And these coupons had no cash value, but they could be turned in the booth for merchandise. And they had everything you could think of. They had toasters, umbrellas, and I just have some of the items here. This is a pencil sharpener. This is a wallet. They also had toys. This is one of my favorite items. If you got a little bored with the games, you could get a tank. And these is a set of binoculars. This is a coin purse. One item here, this is a cigarette lighter. It's called the 8-ball. It went on the coffee table. And you just open it up like that. These coupons, they were actually part of the underground Reno economy because you could trade these things on merchandise, but you could also get cigarettes and you could also get liquor. And you get a bus full of people, and they're all trading these coupons. They would go in and get a bottle or a carton of cigarettes, and same thing with the people in Reno. And they were traded kind of like food stamps, like today. This is a genie, part of their logo, and this was presented when you were a bus patron going back home, and it's an invitation to come back to Reno and use this token. Many people would keep these for years, and they'd come back. This token was in a large slot machine. If you put it in, you would win something.
Promotional items came in all sizes and shapes, just as well as the ideas. Each one of these bottles, you could send off a group of 3 anywhere in the continental United States for $7, including postage. This got Harold's Club's name all over the continental United States. This was a Hawaiian promotion. One of the dealers actually hand-folded every single solitary one of these $1 bills, spread them in a fan, anchored them to the string, separated them with the numbered dice that only Harold's Club used, and this was the welcoming lei for the winner of their Hawaiian contest. One of Harold's best and most expensive advertising gimmicks was a book entitled I Want to Quit Winners. There was a huge amount of these sold, and there was even more of them that were given away as promotional items. Lots of things promoted this book. Harold's Club furnished its smoking friends another version of the matches. One of the very nicest premiums that I have, and I believe that had been given out, period, was this photo album by the Bank Club. It's labeled on the bottom here. It says Reno, 1939. Now the entire thing is a wood applique. When you open this up on the inside, it not only tells you that this is compliments of the Bank Club, it tells you all of the special woods that they used to make this piece.
A lot of ways of promoting casinos. This is a coaster from a very old club in Reno called Club Fortune. Here we have some portrait chips from Harold's Club in Reno. This one shows Harold Smith Sr., the individual that the club was named for. And on the reverse side, so that he wasn't left out, was his older brother, Raymond A. Smith. This one has Pappy Smith, the patriarch of the Smith family, on a $5 chip. Even the machines began to advertise for the casinos. These are called belly glass, and they were backlit inside the machine to both give the schedule of payments, but also to advertise for the club. These three are from the Prima Donna Casino in Reno, and this one features Lady Luck, the lady that was on the marquee of the casino outside.
We used to print a table card that would go on the showroom table that had the entertainer's full-color picture and gave the dates of the show, and then there was a postcard where people could write home and tell everybody what a wonderful time they had, and the club would mail the card for them. We took advantage of every opportunity that was allowable.
In Marsh Fay's book, he's got a photograph. This is that 100 Years of Slot Machines, excellent book. And he's got a photograph of the Harold's Club. And here it is just overwhelmed. You can't even see the floor. There's so many people in there. And what he says is that their advertising campaign was far superior to their actual club at the time. And what did they come to town to see when they finally got here? But a quaint little friendly club that was going through growing pains. The whole town was growing. We had more activity than we had facilities. We were friendly. We liked to see these people, talk about where they're from, get a chance to go visit them. We were the center of attraction, and we wallowed in it.
We hope you have enjoyed this affectionate look back at what some have referred to as Reno's golden age. The passing of the years do leave a sentimentality that may cause us to remember things as a little better than they really were. Nevertheless, let's enjoy our shared memories. In future years, a new generation of Renoites may look back on today and get misty-eyed by their fond remembrances. For all its changes and things that aren't there anymore, Reno's still the biggest little city in the world.
So pack up your things and give your dream wings to big little Reno. The odds are you'll stay for more than a day. You gotta love Reno. Why not visit our mountains and lakes? Our shows are tops. We've got what it takes to make sure you have fun. In snow or in sun,